Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with today's MPUG Global Web and Learn. Again, our feature topic today is managing large programs and mega projects. We have Daniel Zitter here with Mantan Consulting Group. I'm Kirk Van Tine. I'll be on today to help moderate today's session. As always, if you have questions during the presentation, I'll show you how you can submit those questions. We'll try to get those on as many as we can today. We do have some time set aside for questions, so we'll get those on with Daniel. Just a couple highlights here. We do have an upcoming event scheduled for next Wednesday. You can go out and register for that at mpug.com. It's our project talk session on versions of project and help you get through all the various versions of project, and we'll have a discussion around that. Our next upcoming certificate series starts on January 9th. We'll kick off the new year with our three-part series on project management with Microsoft Project Essentials, so you can go out and get registered for that as well. Just a couple quick notes before we get going with today's session. We are using GoToMeeting. I know many of you have been on a few GoToMeeting sessions now. I recognize many familiar names on today, so if you have a question for the presenter during today's session, just submit that through the side panel there. The GoToMeeting panel, you'll see a chat window where you can actually submit the questions, and we'll get those on at various points throughout today. If you do want to collapse, if you just have a single monitor, you want a little bit more space, you want to collapse the panel, there's an orange arrow there you can use to collapse the panel. And anytime you need to zoom in and out, if there's a demo of something that you want to see a little bit closer, there's also a zoom button at the top of GoToWebinar that you can use. Secondly, the PDUs, we will put up a PDU code at the end of today's session. This session is eligible for 1.5 PDUs, so we'll give you that code at the end as well. We always record every session, so as an MPUG member, you can go out to the MPUG website. If you have to jump away, if you have something come up, don't worry. We have a recording. If you want to go back and look at any web session we've had previously, those are out in the MPUG Knowledge Library. You'll see a link to MPUG Web and Learn recordings. If you have any comments, feedback from today's session, please do send it to info@mpug.com. We'll make sure it gets directed to the right person here at MPUG. With that, I'm going to introduce us to today's speaker. I'm excited that we have a new speaker today. That's one of the best things about MPUG for me is that we get the opportunity to bring some new speakers in from all over the world, some of the best speakers that are in the industry. So I'll introduce today, we have Daniel Zitter. He's a director at Mantan Consulting Group. They're a consulting company serving, he serves as a senior project manager. He's got over 12 years of experience in managing multidisciplinary projects. He's a certified PMP. Daniel specializes in assisting organizations by providing them with tools and better program and project management methodologies to enhance their business performances. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Daniel to take it over from here, and we'll let Daniel tell you a little bit about himself as well. So Daniel, I'm going to pass you over and make you the presenter here.
Okay, thanks, Kirk. So waiting for that screen to arrive. Yeah, and I'm going to show my screen. Wonderful. So can you see my screen now?
Yes, I sure can.
Okay, very good. So hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar. My name is Daniel Zitter, as Kirk said, and I've been in the consulting firm business for 12 years now, and working with different organizations on different programs and different projects. So today, today's topic is going to be on managing projects and large programs. And today we're going to be talking about the different subjects. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what the difference is between a project and a program. And we're going to spend some time on understanding what the difference is between projects and programs, what a program manager looks at versus what a project manager looks at, And then we'll talk a little bit about the processes of a program management office. We'll spend some time talking about the differences here as well between what a project manager needs to do as his process is and where it differs as a program manager. Later on, we'll move on to tools to support the processes that I'll describe. I'll try to give you some screenshots and some views into some of the implementations that we've done for the various program managers and try to really understand from their experience. You know, each organization that I go into, I meet very interesting people, very smart people that have a lot of different experiences in the program management industry. And when I talk to them and I hear their different views, I can learn of, you know, different ways and different things that people focus on when they talk about and when they actually manage their own programs. I'm a strong believer that anyone I meet, I have something I can learn from him, and because I meet so many different program managers, I think I've learned quite a bit in the past 12 years, and we put all those things that we learned together into this presentation to talk about today. Now, this is only a 1-hour presentation, so obviously you're not going to become program managers just by listening to this presentation, but I'll try to focus on some of the points that I've heard over the years that are really the basics or the places that the program managers, the successful program managers that I've met really focus on. And when we finish, we'll talk a little bit about the summary of the benefits and about things that you need to do as a program manager. So before we dive in and we talk about the differences between programs and projects, I want to give you some examples of different endeavors. I'm not going to say programs or projects because I want you guys to think about this. And after we go through the presentation, I'll come to these endeavors again, and we'll talk and we'll try to understand together if they are in fact programs or projects. Okay? So I'm going to start here with the first endeavor, and that is the one that we're involved with a large semiconductor provider. Basically, this endeavor includes replacing all of the tools within a clean room of a fab, of a fabrication in the semiconductor industry. And basically because you have, because the chips change so often, and because you have to, in order to manufacture new chips and new wafers, you need to replace many times all of the tools or a good majority of the tools within a clean room. You have an endeavor that takes anywhere between a couple of months and a year and a half to replace these tools. And the question here is replacing all of the tools within a clean room a program, or is it considered to be a project? Okay. The next example I have here is of the system. Many of you might have heard of this. It's called the Iron Dome. If you follow the international news, we had some conflicts here in Israel a couple of weeks ago, and some missiles were shot from various places to different cities here in Israel, and many of the missiles that were shot towards us were intercepted by this system called the Iron Dome. Basically, it's a missile versus missile kind of system, and creating this system was an endeavor that includes creating the missiles that know how to seek the other missile and radars and different pieces here. So the question, is this a program or is this a project? Okay. The next example is of a company that was put together here in Israel. It's called Neta. It's a company that is in charge of creating different transportation methods here in the main section of Israel, and it includes creating a railroad system both above and underground. And we have different lines there. So there are different lines like the red line, a green line, a yellow line, and each one connects different parts and different cities. And the question is, do we look at this as a program, or are these different projects that include the installation and putting together all these railroad systems? So before we dive into and talk about a program, I'm sure most of you know this already, but I have to go through this and just make sure that everybody's aligned. What is a project? So a project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. It has a very clear start and finish date, and it's something that you know how to, you're able to manage as a temporary endeavor and not something that takes a long time. So how does a program differ from a project? So when we talk about a program, we're talking about a group of related projects that are managed in a coordinated way to obtain benefits and control that are not available from managing them individually. So basically, when you talk about a program, you're talking about multiple projects that are put together, but not just put together because they have the same division manager or because they're under the same company. That is called a portfolio. A program is when you put together projects that are that need to be coordinated between, that you need to get, when you want to get certain benefits, you have to have all the pieces of the program together in one place. Okay? So that's a very high-level explanation of what a program is. And in order for us to try and understand and capture some of the differences between the two, the program and the project, I'm going to talk in the next slide a little bit about that in more detail. When we talk about program management, we have many of the same processes that we have within a project. You have an initiation phase, planning phase, execution, monitoring and control, and closing, much like you have in any other project. The main difference when you look at this is that the program manager and the program management office have different roles during the different phases. So as program managers, when you're in the initiation and planning phase, it is your job to make sure that all the project managers understand what the program goals are. So because a program is very specific and very focused on their goals and what the benefits are going to be of the whole program as a program, you need to make sure that this is conveyed to the project managers and that everybody understands that their goal as a project manager needs to focus and needs to spearhead into those benefits. And he needs to have the benefits in mind when he's talking about and when he's trying to deliver his deliverables within his project. So in the first phases, when we talk about program managers and the program management office, we need to make sure that they convey these benefits and they send and they explain to the project managers what their goals are. They need not only to give them the outline of the goals, but they actually have to go down and give them specific deliverables and make sure that each project manager understands his work packages, what he is expected to deliver, and he understands the scope, the timeline, the resources he has, his budget, and he needs to make sure that he is coordinated with the other project managers within the program. So that is the program manager's job, to make sure he lets the project managers know what they are expected to do, and the project managers on their side are tasked to come back to the program manager and to let him know what they can and what they can't do. If they have the resources to do what they're expected to do, or they don't. So the program manager will be able to coordinate all of the resources and all of the efforts between the different project managers. So we're really divided into two main sections. When we're talking about initiation and planning, the program management office takes a role of the one that's guiding the project managers, letting them know what their scope, what their timeline, what their budget is, what exactly it is that they need to do, getting inputs from the project managers and understanding what they're telling them. Can they really meet the dates? Can they meet the scope of what they're being asked to do? Are the work package that they got understandable? Are they coordinated with the other project managers? Do they have things that they need to get from other stakeholders outside of the program, and how are they connected to those stakeholders? Okay, so these are things that you do during the initiation and planning phases. When we talk about the next phases, execution, monitoring and control, and closing, then the program manager takes the role of the guy that does the monitoring, of the guy that does and looks at what is going on within the projects. So there's a very fine line between making sure that the project underneath the program manager is going well than to actually going in and managing the project. We do not expect the program manager to know in detail everything that's going on within each one of the projects. No. We want him to be able to control things through the work packages and the major milestones that he let and he gave the project manager. So we need to make sure that the program manager has visibility of things that he needs visibility to, and he lets the project manager do his job by managing the project, but he actually has the tools to make sure that if something isn't on track or if there are risks to the project, then he'll be able to go in and dive into what the project manager needs to do in that phase. So the program management processes and the program management processes in many cases are very similar, and we'll talk about a little bit more in examples as we go through the next slides. So to further understand the differences between project and program, I took some of the information in the program management guide of the PMI and tried to focus on certain things that are different between programs and projects. So first of all, let's talk about the purpose of each one of these. So for a project, the purpose of the project manager is to effective execution of work to create in the specific deliverables, whereas the program is very focused on business outcomes and benefits of the whole endeavor, of the big thing, of what we're trying to put together. So for instance, if we take the Iron Dome and we look at the processes or what we're trying to achieve there, we're trying to make sure that missiles don't fall on our cities. But when you look at the different project managers, you have a project manager that manages the part of creating the missile, okay? Or we have a project manager that's in charge of the radar. Each one of them has a specific role, and he needs to make sure that his system works the way that is expected, that will help achieve what they're trying to do, which is to be able to protect a city. But each one of them have specific things that they need to do within their project. So they have a different purpose. They're all working towards the same goal, but they have different purposes when they look at their own job classification. Stakeholders. Usually when you talk about a project, you don't have too many stakeholders. You can have, your direct manager, and you can have maybe a manager in the organization. But when you talk about programs, many times you have stakeholders that are not only part of what you're doing, but could have a significant part and be someone that you're not in contact with in the day-to-day use. We were part of a program of changing and replacing many utilities in one of the municipalities here in Israel. And one of what they didn't understand when we started the project is that they had many different stakeholders. And the stakeholders didn't only include the electric company and the water company here in Israel. It also included all of the residents of the city that were very much impacted by the work that was done there. So if you have a vast number of stakeholders, that can alter your project from being just a simple project to being a major program, just because you need to create and coordinate between all the different stakeholders. You know, when you talk about project and program, sometimes it's very easy to differentiate between the two. When you have something that's only going to take like a month or 2 months, that's very small, it's very easy to understand that that is a project. When you're talking about something that's huge, it could take 7, 8, 9 years, and you have different industries working on the same thing, then yeah, it's pretty clear that it's a program. So duration is something that really plays a big part in this differentiation between projects and programs. So when you have something that's relatively short, then usually it would be more of a project. And when it's something that's longer, and this is something obviously that's very relative, right? Is a year long or short? This is something that you'll need to discuss. But a lot of times you can just understand what the classification is looking at the duration. Scope. So when you talk about a project, you have defined objectives. The scope is progressively elaborated throughout the project lifecycle. And when you talk about programs, they usually have a much larger scope, okay? And the fact that they have much of the scope usually also means that they also provide much more and much more significant benefits to the organization, to the city, to the country, whoever is in charge of that program. So because usually programs are longer, many times during the program things can change. Okay, I was involved in a very large program in the military industry, and they started the project about 7 years ago. And 5 years later, when they started the integration, they realized that they ordered computers 5 years ago, and they had certain CPUs, and you know they weren't as advanced as the computers today. So things change while you have a longer project and a program, and the scope of the program can also change just because things around you change. Might it be technology or even the business needs while you're going through this large endeavor can change during this time. So when you talk about programs, we need to think about some easy ways to view this and easy ways to take this complexity of the program and to turn it into something that's manageable. Okay? So what are the first things that you would recommend the program manager to do when he gets into his hands and he starts working on a program? So the first thing that a program manager needs to do is break down the program into several individual projects. And it's not only taking the program and giving the project managers different work packages, but making sure that each project manager understands that he is now the work package owner, that he is in charge fully to that scope that he was given. Okay, so I need to make sure that I have good project managers that I work with. I need to make sure that they understand their scope in order for me to be able, me as a program manager, to be able to do my job and to make sure that all of the outside world is notified, and make sure that the program, all the program stakeholders keep on track and they know what's going on within my program. And if one of the project managers has difficulty or isn't coordinated with other project managers, I'll be able to help him and spend time and resources to help him get back on track. But I have to have the project managers in place that know what is expected of them, not only by the scope, time, and effort, but also make sure that they understand how I intend to manage the program and what I need them to do. The next point here is that we need to properly manage the integration of the dependencies between the projects. So many times you have large programs, and the projects, because they're all working towards the same goal, they need to align among each other. And you need to make sure that the project managers know exactly when they need to give their deliverables, or what we call their gives, to other project managers, and when they need to get things, and are the project managers aligned to one another. So as a program manager, you have to spend a good amount of your time managing those connections between the various project managers and between the internal dependencies and the external dependencies of the organization. The last piece I want to talk about before we go to questions is that managing projects, you need to make sure that the project managers are using standards and organizational tools so that you as a program manager will be able to understand what they're working on and make sure that if you need to dive into and make sure that they're working on the right things, and if they're meeting their dates, you'll know how to do that because you're all aligned with your processes and your tools. And just to summarize this, Henry Ford once said that, there are no big problems, there are just a lot of little problems. And if we take that into the program management world, you understand that you need to take the big problem, which is the program, not really a problem but a challenge, but take that one big program and divide it into different work packages, assign them to different owners, the project managers, and then you'll be able to solve your program. So Kirk, do we have any questions so far?
Yeah, Daniel, we had a question come in a little earlier from Alan. He was a little surprised. He said that closing was not under program leadership again, like initiating and planning was. I wanted to know what was the kind of the thinking there.
So this is actually something that I took out of the program management standard by PMI. I can understand Alan's point by closing being something that would be under the program manager, but I just didn't want to alter this diagram. This is something I took out of the standard. But yeah, I can definitely understand Alan's point. And I think that, yes, the program manager is the one that needs to talk about this. Maybe we can send a note over to the PMI folks that are working on the next standard and suggest that.
Okay, and that's the only question we had in the queue at this point. So actually I did have one that just popped in from Tom. Tom asks, where are the resources planned?
Okay, so the resources usually on the detail level are going to be planned down on the project end. So when you talk about the actual names and the actual teams that are going to be working on things, usually you talk about those on the project level. But when you start out the project, when you're here in the initiation and planning phases, you talk about budgets and you talk about the resources. And here's where you have the interaction between the program manager and where he would divide his resources among the different project managers. So he would talk about this in a higher level and talk about, I don't know, thousands of man hours that he has or different resources if he has them. He would talk about those then, but then when it goes down into the detail, they would be managed on a project level in general. Does that answer your question there?
If it doesn't, we'll have Tom submit a follow-up. We'll take one more question here that just popped into. Are larger projects done in phases considered as programs?
So it really depends. It's hard. It's usually not very simple to differentiate between the larger projects and the programs. It really depends on how the organization looks at it. and how they deal with it. Usually if you have a program manager in place and he looks at everything under the program manager's eye, then it's managed more as a program. In other places, you know, it just matters of how the organization views this and how they put things together.
All right, great. Thanks, Daniel.
Okay, so I'm going to move on, and now we're going to go in and talk a little bit about some examples and tips for successful, well, we are PUG seminar here, and we're talking about using Microsoft Project for managing programs and projects. So I'm going to try to convey some of the tips and some of the insights that I got from the different program managers I've worked with over the years and show you how we've implemented it within a project server implementation, just so you get some view and some idea of how we did it. So the first thing that is really important to understand is the point of a program file, and a program manager needs to be able to track everything he wants to track on a higher level. So I don't expect, you know, I went into some organizations and I asked the program manager if he has a program plan, and he said sure. He went ahead and he opened the program plan, which was actually a master file that included 40,000 tasks. And I looked at him and I asked, okay, do you really understand all these 40,000 tasks? Do you understand the detail of what's going on here? Do you really want to, on a day-to-day basis, go into a file that contains 40,000 tasks? Can you manage this? And he said, you know, Dan, no, I can't. And that's not what I want to see, but this is the solution I currently have in place. So I asked him, what do you want to see? And he said, you know, I'd really want a view where I can see the major work packages that are being worked on and what are planned out to be worked on, and maybe the major milestones of my project. And I said, great, so let's put something like that together. And we put together a project plan, and the project plan turned out to be something not small. It was about 600 lines, 600 work packages and milestones. But this was something that when he looked at, you know, the next half year, he could see his 50 work packages. He could manage that. He knew how to ask questions about these work packages, and it was very simple for him to focus on the places that he had issues. So we put together, you can see that here on top, a program plan, and then we created project plans for the different work packages and the different project managers, and they managed their work packages there. So we had a common language. You can see here the line here in orange. The line here in orange is design here, and it's also design in the project manager's file. But as a program manager, all I want to know is when it's starting, when it's finishing, maybe percent complete, something about the budget, something about the cost, resources that are being worked on this here, and if I'm on track or if I'm not on track. That's all I want to know. Okay? When you go into the project manager's plan, you want to get a lot more detail. You know, this one work package can turn into a 300, 400, and 500 lines of tasks, okay, because they have a different role, the program manager and the project manager. So the different project managers or the different work package managers have their own place to manage their work in the detail that they need to have it. And the program manager has his work in the detail that he needs to have it. Okay? Another thing that the program manager wants to know is, you know, he wants to go in once a week or once a month and to see if something has changed within the work package. Are they pushing out the dates? Have they worked more hours than they had the budget for? Okay, so there are different things that he wants to track on his high level looking at things. So this is again something you want to allow the program manager to do. Now, in many organizations that we work with, we install a solution that we have for program management called MasterLink, and you can get out of that things like this, different views, to allow you as a program manager to connect to all of the other projects in the organization without seeing all of the details. Okay? And the examples I'm going to give here are pictures out of that system, but again, what is important here is the idea, is the complex, is understanding how this can be done, and you can implement it in different ways. You can also implement it with Project Server out of the box. Just you'll have to do a lot of manual things, but there is a way to do it also in that sort of way. So the next thing that a program manager needs to do in the initiation and planning phase is send work packages to the project managers. Now, this is not something that he's supposed to do when he's or detail it out, and it's not supposed to come to the project manager as a surprise. Wow, I have a new work package and I'll see it through the system. But when he goes through the processes and after he talks to the project manager, if he sends him a work package and tells him when he expects it to start, when he expects it to finish, and what the budget is for him there, then you can give him all that information, and then when he details that work package out, you want to see what he came up with. If you said something should be finished within 3 months and you think it should take something like 4,000 man-hours, and he comes back to you, you want to hear his input. And you also want to remember what you said and what he said. So within the solution we have here, the program manager can choose a work package, send it to the project manager, to the work package owner, and tell him, I expect you to start this on this date, I expect it to be done at this date, and these are the man hours I expect it to take. And after the project manager does his job and elaborates the work package and makes sure he understands it and knows all the tasks that are supposed to be there, then the program manager will get all the information he needs back, and he'll see the differences, and you can see that in a history log that we created here. He'll be able to see what he suggested and what he's getting back, and then he can go back to the project manager and renegotiate these dates and the cost and so on. Any questions so far, Kirk?
We had a couple come in. Tom was asking, how does the program manager's master project obtain the sub-projects owned by others within the server?
So this again comes to our tool, to MasterLink. Basically, when you create, using our tool, you create a program file and you create the project files, and then you can create a link between the work package in the project file, in the program file, and the summary task usually within the project file. And we have a connection we call a work package connection. And this actually allows you to reflect a summary task from a sub-project, which is, talking about the language in Microsoft. So when you have a sub-project and you have a summary task there, you want to reflect it into your file. Using MasterLink, you can reflect only that summary task and get all the information that you want, including start, finish, percent complete, cost, work, or any other enterprise field that you want to have there.
And we'll take this other question from Jeffrey. For the program plan, how do updates roll up from the project plan? Is this manual or sneaker process? I'm not sure what he refers to there.
So it really, you have to divide this into two situations. If you have MasterLink, it's completely automated. If you don't have MasterLink, then it's a manual process. So the program manager, I went into organizations where they had a full-time employee just going and making updates from the project files into the program file. So you have some organizations that spend many man-hours just to make sure that the program manager and the program management office has the information they need in order to really manage the program. So it can be done, I'm sure, with other ways, different macros you can create, but Masterlink does that out of the box.
Okay, we'll let you keep going here, Daniel.
Okay. So the next thing I heard from various program managers was that, I'll let you know, I went into this organization and I talked to this really smart guy who was the program manager there, and he told me, Dan, all I really want to know about the project and the way the program and the way I intend to manage it is just by understanding the links between the various work package owners and between and managing the links between the project managers and the program. He said that's all I need to know, because if one project manager isn't on time delivering something to another project manager, I know I have an issue in the schedule. Okay, and perhaps I also have an issue with my budget. So all I want to know is what are the connections among the project managers. So we went ahead and we helped him create a report that allows him to see only the connections between the different project managers and make sure he can see not only what the connections are, but what each project manager thinks that he's doing. So I'll give you an example, and let's look at this report here. Again, this is a report out of Masterlink, but you can create similar reports yourself. So if you have a program, and the program name could be, what it is here is Made in Israel. And then you have different projects or different work packages that this program is connected to. It can be connected to purchasing and QA and so on. So in this example, you can see that the Made in Israel program is connected to the purchasing project plan, and you can see that the purchasing project manager thinks that he's going to be finishing December 3rd, but the Made in Israel program manager thinks that he's going to get this in September. Okay, so I can see and I can focus right away. Not only can I see all of the connections that I have between the project managers, I can focus and only look for things that are different between what the program manager thinks and what the project manager thinks. Or I can look at the differences between what different project managers think that they're giving or delivering. In a situation like this here, I can see very easily that there's a disconnect between what the purchasing manager thinks and what the project manager or the program manager here in Made in Israel think that they're going to be getting with this CM. Okay, so visually, both visually and here with the dates and everything, you can see what the differences are between what people think. And for that company, they still have this. They have a meeting every Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and they talk about only the differences between what the project manager of one place thinks and what the other project manager thinks. So it's a really good process that they have in place that they really enjoy. The next piece that another smart program manager talked to me about was, he said, Daniel, when you talk about project management and you read the PM book, you really focus on critical path. And that's something that's very important to people, and they want to know what their project critical path is. And there are, various ways to do this and make sure that you understand what the task and the drivers are for you to get to a certain milestone. But he said, that's very good. That's something I really want to understand. But what happens if I want to look at my program? I have a deliverable there in the program, and I want to make sure that I understand what the critical path is across the whole program. Okay? So I want to be able to choose either a work package or a major milestone, and to understand what the critical path is that leads to that work package. Okay, so you have an example here of a program called New Product, and I choose one of the work packages there. And when I go back using and looking for the program critical path, I see that it goes through two files. One is a product development planning phase, and I see the different tasks that are part of this critical path. And then it also goes back. I can see that this identified the need for the product, goes back and connects to a task from within another project called software development. So using a tool like this or creating a report like this is something that could really help a program manager understand what the critical path is that's leading to a certain work package or to a certain major milestone within his organization. Kirk, questions?
Yeah, we do have a couple more that have come in. How can portfolio managers distinguish between programs and sub-projects? As a portfolio manager, I may be interested to look at only projects and programs, but not sub-projects.
So I'll try to answer that. Our webinar today is more focused on programs and projects. Maybe just for everyone else, I'll try to explain what a portfolio is, and then we'll try to answer the question here. So when we talk about a portfolio, we're talking about some endeavors that are put together. They could be either programs and projects, but they don't necessarily have a correlation between them, or you're working on these different programs and projects in order to meet your organizational goals, but you're not talking specifically about certain benefits that are, all going towards the same place. And when you talk about a portfolio manager, you need different tools to be able to see a picture of your different programs and your projects. If we talk about Project Server 2010, when you create a portfolio using the tool, you can choose what projects and programs you want to put together under the same portfolio. So if you manage things the way that I explained here, where you have work package, project plans, and you have program plans, you can choose to view the programs and the large projects within that portfolio. And that's the way that the portfolio will get the information that he needs. I just want to emphasize that a portfolio manager's role is different than a program manager's role. This is outside the scope of this webinar, but he needs different tools to manage his scope than what I'm presenting today.
All right, great. Laura had a question. It was a little bit early on, but what about using Project Server and sub-projects, or do you have to use MasterLink?
So there are ways to use a project file and a master file in the sub-projects. There are certain limitations using it, but I know of organizations that do it. So it is possible to do that. It's just sometimes a little bit more manual of a process. You have to create the reports yourself. You can automate them yourself, but you'll need to go ahead and create that on your own. So yes, it is possible to do that, and there are many organizations that do it. I know of some organizations that do that on their own, but they have a lot of customizations around it. So they've invested in creating macros or creating other reports, or just in the process, and they came up with something that sometimes is good enough for them, and that can definitely work. Yes.
We'll end with this one for now. Eric was asking, what do the orange square brackets mean in the critical path view?
In the critical path view.
Might be this view here, the orange square brackets there.
Right. It's talking about how they're connected to one another. If it's a finish to start connection, then it's showing this way. When it's a connection that is like here, a work package connection, it shows that it starts in the same date here. So it's just a way to show that.
Okay, thanks, Daniel.
Okay, so the next thing that I hear from program managers is that, you know, they really, because they don't go into all the detail of the different work packages, and many times they're focused on the major work packages that are on their critical path, their program critical path. So sometimes some of the work packages don't get the attention that they deserve, okay? Because, you know, as a program manager, we said, I need to be focused on many different things, but I want to be focused on what's really on my critical program path. So sometimes I forget about other things. And then I could have some things creep up on me. So I have an example. Again, this is in one of the a large industry. There was a very talented program manager I was working with there. And, you know, we had a biweekly meeting. We talked about the program critical path. And there was one work package that was fairly small. They were just they created a caravan for one of the other project managers, and we didn't really notice it. We didn't look at it very often. And then one day I was going through my plan, and I saw that again I got a delay from that work package owner telling me he's going to postpone his delivery by another week. Now, for some reason, I remembered that this happened a couple of weeks before as well. So I went ahead and I opened his history there. And what I saw was that every 3 weeks, he sent in a very small change telling us he's going to be late by 1 additional week. Okay? So he kind of creeped up on us, and basically he was pushing out his dates without being on our radar. We were looking for things that are being pushed out by 2 weeks and more. We were looking for things that are on the program critical path. So we didn't have a way to really understand and to catch that he's really postponing things, and that we have an issue there. So what we put together was a way, again, within our tool, within MasterLink, to go ahead and see the milestone trend analysis or the work package trend analysis of these work packages, and to understand how they're being postponed. So you can choose any work package you want on the program plan level that's connected via MasterLink, and then you can see the various changes when I've sampled the information and what the new finish date is. So this is another report that program managers need to look at, not on a weekly basis, but on a periodically, something that they need to look at periodically and understand if people are pushing in and moving things on a regular basis there. I talked to a program manager that once told me, Dan, all I want to know and all I want to manage are the risks within the program. If I know the risks, if I manage the risks, then I'll be okay. And, you know, I thought that was a very interesting way of looking at things. I can't say that I definitely agree completely with that approach, but risk is something that is definitely supposed to be on a program manager's focus. And by looking at the risks of the program and viewing them in a visual way could help a program manager manage his risks. So you have a nice visualization here of your risks. You can ask to see on the risk matrix here your various risks from the different projects. And you can say, you know, I don't want to manage all of the risks, but only risks that the project managers assign or say that me as a program manager, I need to have an attention on, and I can see them there. So you have the risk matrix, and another view that our customers really enjoy and like creating or using is a view that allows you to see how the exposure of a risk changes over time. So if I install this, when I install this usually in organizations that manage risks using Project Server, usually what I get is flat lines here showing me and indicating that somebody has created a risk list, but nobody is managing it because the exposure is not changing. And if you're managing your risks, then the risks are either increasing in probability or in exposure, or they're decreasing. It doesn't make much sense that they're staying the same the whole time. So just by installing this piece, you get a lot of response from the project managers saying, yeah, maybe I do have to update things here, because visually it's telling them, I'm not really managing a risk here and I need to focus on this maybe a little bit more. So another piece, report that you can put together and manage when you're managing your programs. We're down to talking about benefits of this structured program management and the summary. So before we go into the summary, do we have any additional questions?
We don't have anything in the queue right now. I think we're all caught up.
Okay, good. So when we talk about benefits of what we call the structured program manager, what are we trying to achieve? Basically, we want to achieve as program managers, want to have less conflicts between the projects. We're all working together on a program. We're all working together towards specific benefits and goals. And we need to make sure that the project managers are working together towards these goals. Now, in order for them to work together, you have conflicts all the time. That's part of the project. You have conflicts, you have changes. That's nothing that's going to change. But you need the responsible adults. You need the program manager in there to be able to coordinate the different conflicts and step in when necessary and help with assigning more resources or talking about priority of things in order to make sure that the program as a whole moves forward the way that you're supposed to move. And the way that you can do this in a very straightforward way is to manage the deliverables between the different projects and to make sure you understand them, to make sure that all the project managers are aligned. So when you look at a report like we presented here, the give and get report, you'll be able to understand what the connections are, and if we have discrepancies between the project managers, we'll know how to align them. The next thing that you want to get when you're talking about program management is you want an optimal utilization of resources. So if you have a project deliverable that's being finished either on time or maybe it's late 2 months, and the other project manager thinks that he's getting it on a different date, sometimes the project team could stand idle just waiting for a deliverable. If I want to start an integration of my project and I'm waiting for a piece of software from another team and I don't even know that it's not supposed to be coming on time or that they've pushed out the date by 2 months, I could have people stand around and not work because the work that they were supposed to do, that they're assigned to, isn't ready for them. So again, by managing the connections between the projects and making sure that everybody's aligned, you can make sure you have an optimal use of your resources. And if you know that something isn't going to be there on time and you know that a month in advance, you can plan for other things to be done in the program during that time. Or you could create a replacement or a stub for something that you're supposed to get from another project manager in order for you to be able to continue doing what you're supposed to be doing. And the last and very important piece here is improving the success rate of program deliverables and benefits, because we all again have the same goal. We're all trying to meet our benefits and to hit those benefits as soon as possible as a whole program. So you need to have this whole system in place in order for everyone to be aligned, to improve communication lines between everyone, and to make sure that they all understand what they're working towards and how to coordinate among themselves. So now we're back to the first slide talking about the different projects here, the different programs, and what are they? Are they programs or are they projects? Let's try and understand it based on the criteria that we talked about at the beginning of the session today. So Iron Dome. Iron Dome is a program. It has many stakeholders. It's a program that's been out there, and they've been working on it for many years now, and they're still working on it to improve and to make changes and improvements on it. And it has a lot of different industries that are working on it. You have people that are working on the missile, and on the missile you have people that are working on the engine, and other people that are working on the sensors, and so on and so forth. So you have many different project managers that are working on this. And although some of the pieces of this system are also being used for other systems, like the radar and different parts of it, but again, they're all working towards the same benefit, the same goal here, which is protecting the whole the cities here in Israel, and to make sure that missiles don't fall on us. You know, so that's a program that we have there. The large semiconductor company, and replacing the fabrication and the tools in there. So when you talk about installing the tools, and you're talking about these multi-million-dollar machines, you know, each one of these tools, in buying it and installing it, could be, you know, a cost of up to $120 million per tool. Okay, and installing them is a very complex thing, because not only do you need to install it in a very crowded environment. Clean rooms are generally very small, just to make sure that they're more effective, and you need to coordinate which tool you'll install before the other tool, and what tool do I need to move out before I incorporate the new tool, because I don't have a lot of space in there, and it's not possible to move tools around. So because of all those coordinations, each installation of a tool could be looked upon as a project, and as a whole we're working to get one process in place where we can create the wafers and the chips eventually that will create the product for us. So this whole endeavor is a program consisting of tens or hundreds of projects of installing the tools and replacing the tools, moving in the tools, moving out the old tools, all the time while keeping and working in the same fab, manufacturing the old process. So definitely a large program in place. Now when we talk about the last example here, this is a little bit trickier, because this is a very long endeavor. It could take many years to complete, and you have many, many different stakeholders. We have 5 cities that are part of this whole endeavor, and each city has its own rules, and you need to coordinate things with the city, with the municipality. You need to make sure that you're working in places that you don't have electric lines and water lines and so on and so forth. So you have many, many different stakeholders. So you can look at building all of these different lines as one big program, because you need to coordinate between things. But you could also look at each one of these lines as a project of its own, because they have their own benefit. I mean, even if I only finish one of the lines, I'm giving benefits to many of my stakeholders. So this is a little bit trickier. They manage it as a large program, that is, but they did cut it down to different projects, and each project is done in a different phase. But all the documentation from the municipalities and everything, that's managed within the program management office that you have in here. So basically, the 3 examples that I gave here are all programs. Any questions? So before I finish and close, I want to thank you all for joining us and staying on. You can contact me. I have my email down here. It's danielz@matanconsulting.com. We do work with many different consultants around the world and different companies. So if you want to talk about our tool, if you want to hear more about it, if you want to read more about it, you can go to our site and you can, understand more about it and maybe take some ideas from it if you want to do implementation on your own. So we have a lot of good ideas there that you could use on your own there. So thank you very much, Kirk. Thank you very much, all. If you have any other questions, I'm still here.
Okay, well, thank you, Daniel. We'll see if we have any questions. I know we still have some a little bit of time remaining here, so we left some time at the end for questions for Daniel. If there are any questions at all, please submit them to the queue. Maybe we'll wait just a minute or two here to see if we get any additional questions. We just had a couple people just thanking you for the great information so far. So see if we get any additional questions here. And for those of you who are asking about the recording, we will have a recording available. We'll post that in the MPUG members area as well. We have a question that just popped in from Robert. Daniel, this is good. Any source where people can get more information along this path?
Well, yes. You can go to our website. We have recordings there. We have a white paper that talks about working on matrix organization. So yeah, you can go into our website. And if you want more information from me, again, I'll be happy to talk to any one of you. You can write me on my email, and I'll make sure I get back to you. Maybe we can connect and talk. This is a topic that I'm really interested in, and I love talking about it. So feel free to contact me, LinkedIn or whatever, and I'll love to talk to you and give you some more information whenever you want.
All right. We have a question from Jonathan. Besides having effective tools, what do you consider to be important success factors for program managers, i.e., personality, skills?
Wow, that's a big one. So obviously leadership is one of the basic things that you need to have as a program manager. And the next thing would be communication skills. So I would say if I look at a program manager, those are the first two things that I'm looking for in a person that's supposed to be a program manager. You need to communicate with so many different people, and to make sure that you can convey all the different issues and find solutions to everything that's going on there. And usually this is done through communication. And with your leadership skills, you'll be able to resolve many of the things, understand the bigger issues and the conflicts. And again, those are the two major things that I look for in program managers.
And we'll just we have just a comment that from Robert saying you did a great job presenting. I'm working with this in my organization. It's a challenge teaching the differences. So just a comment that came in there.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks a lot.
And a couple other people with similar kind of feedback. So it looks like that's all we've got today for questions. So I will take back over control. Daniel, thanks very much for taking the time to join us. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
All right, and let me just take back over control here and give you guys the remaining information. I know many of you are still waiting for the PDU code. Which is coming up on the screen here. It's MPUG WebnLearn 120412. So you can go ahead and claim your PDU codes that should be available following today's session on the PMI website. And if you do have just a few minutes to go out to mpug.com/survey, I would really appreciate it just to give us a little bit of feedback on today's session. We always appreciate that. And with that, we look forward to seeing everybody on the next WebnLearn. Actually, I apologize. Before everybody goes, someone just caught that. The correct code should be 120612 for today's session. We'll fix that one real quick there. So if you're on still, it should be 120612 for today's session. That was a typo on my part. I'll pop that back up here for you guys. All right, and there's the code there, 120612. So that will end today's call. Thank you very much for attending.